What is going on, guys? It is your boy Perry back with another Wednesday edition of Perry's Points. I'm going to be joined by John Chapman today shortly. I'm just kind of waiting for him to get into the chat now. He's doing his school stuff and whatnot. And look at that. He just joined right on time. John, how you doing, buddy? Great timing. I literally just started the show.
Awesome, man. Dude, absolutely incredible to be with you, Perry. I apologize. Coming home from school stuff, it was the seniors' last day today, so it was a lot of farewells and tears and all that stuff. Tears of joy, mind you. But very happy to be here with you, man.
Hey, at least you get to see the kids, man. That's really exciting to say the least. At least they, they're seniors especially, so they get to be together and really mingle and interact and be kids for at least one last day of high school. So let's get right into it, man. Guys, I'm joined by John Chapman. Follow him on Twitter at JL_Chapman. John, let everyone know what you do and where they can find you. Where else?
Yeah, I'm most active on Twitter at JL_Chapman, but the 49ers Rush podcast, that's kind of the thing that I do, and film, just lots of film. So if you're one of the people that wants to just understand a little bit more of the game, that's kind of the whole idea. Former football coach, and so try to jump into the scheme, what makes plays successful, what makes players successful, and kind of educate. So it's a very film-based approach to the 49ers in the NFL draft. And just, anywhere you listen to podcasts, 49ers Rush, that's where you're going to find it.
John, it is schedule day. This is the day everyone has been waiting for weeks. I mean, aside from the NFL draft, that felt like forever. But I feel like the schedule kind of went under the radar for the most part. And now this is finally here. And this is really the next most exciting thing to go about the entire offseason process. So as of right now, it has been confirmed that the Niners are going to play week 1 at the Lions, week 2 against the Eagles, week 3 versus the Packers, and so far week 8 against the Bears. Just based off of those 4 games so far, what matchup are you most excited to see?
Well, whenever I saw week 1 versus the Lions, I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to play Jared Goff again. Like this is like Christmas. Like, what a wonderful way to start this year off. Because one, you look at, we've destroyed him his entire career. And part of the reason why he was shipped out of, Los Angeles was because he just couldn't beat the 49ers. And he stunk it up so bad in those games. And he was losing with the Rams roster. now he's playing with the Lions roster, and that's awesome. So you love the way that's going to start out. Philadelphia, I'm most excited about. I'm not sure if you've heard, Perry, what we're doing this year, a little bit different, especially after last year with COVID. We're doing 3 road trips with the 49ers Rush podcast, where we're doing basically we did this at Super Bowl down in Miami, where we go and we have an absolute party. We book a bar or a venue and we hang out, tailgate together and all those things. So the 49ers Rush we're going Philly's a prime candidate. I'm trying to get some things worked out with some hotels now. And so I'm very excited about this. I love that city. Philadelphia is absolute blast. And I just, with what they did to us last year, that was definitely a winnable game. And probably Carson Wentz's last good game as an Eagle. You want to go back and just kind of wipe the slate clean. And with the way that 2019 finished, it left a bad taste in 2020 finished, left a bad taste in everybody's mouth, especially the 49ers. So you step in there now and you just, week 1, I think that you got that and you count that as a W, and you should go in there and take care of business. Week 2, you go in and you basically prove to yourself and to the football world, not that I see the Eagles as a quality football team, I don't, but you solidify. 2-0 is an impression. And on the road, 2-0, that's huge. And so to kind of wake up and just show, look, this is who we are. We are the 2019 49ers. That's where we are. We're picking up where they left off, not 2020. And so you go out and make a stance those 2 games. And then, of course, number 3, Aaron Rodgers, is he going to be there? Green Bay Packers, we'll see. We've had their number. And so that's going to be a fun game, because one of those games that could come down to that number 1 overall seed, number 2 overall seed, home field advantage in the playoffs, which I don't think any 49ers fan sees Green Bay as a true threat. We've just had their number for so long, but we'll have to see what happens there. But the first 3 games is going to be fun.
So, John, that means I got to ask you, are they going to be making the first impression with Jimmy Garoppolo or with Trey Lance?
Oh, it's going to be Jimmy G. It just has to be, unless something crazy happens where there's a trade that takes place. And I know a lot of people get riled up about the 25 million and all those things. Understand this. This front office has been as transparent as possible through this entire process. And John Lynch said after they held the press conference, after they traded up to 3, the first thing we did is we went and talked to Jed York and we said, hey, this is what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to get a quarterback. We're going to trade up, but we want to keep Jimmy G in his salary to guarantee this transition. So I understand the people that are wanting to move away and move off that. Having said that, no, this is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo is going to start early on. And I think that's best for everybody. One, if Jimmy G performs well, which I think he will, especially this favorable schedule early, that increases his, draft trade value, which is huge. That helps the 49ers. And the longer Trey Lance sits this year, I don't think he'll sit the whole year, but the longer he does sit, the better it is for him. Kyle Shanahan likes to work his quarterbacks in slowly. If you remember back, Jimmy Garoppolo didn't start for 5 games, and that was on a losing team. The only time he got in was because of injury. So that's kind of what you're looking for. And Jimmy Garoppolo, the best thing the 49ers could do right now is just support and root for this stud. And that's Jimmy Garoppolo. Do I think that he's a top 10 quarterback? Hell no, I don't. I don't think anybody believes that. But you can win with him. And so you let him go for as long as possible till he gets injured or until he starts playing mediocre. Then you make the switch.
Yeah, there's a lot to take away from this, John. And I think to start with, it's that a lot of people expect rookie quarterbacks to come in and play right away. And we've seen that all throughout the past few years alone with guys like Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, Justin Herbert, for example, Joe Burrow. There's all kinds of first-round talent that's been able to play. And I think the difference between those guys and Trey Lance is that they're coming into play with almost no expectation other than growth. You look at the Chargers, you look at the Bengals, you look at the Browns at the time. They're not playoff rosters. They're guys that are still kind of working out the kinks of the roster, and they can accept a losing season. They just want to see growth from the quarterback. The difference right now is that the 49ers are an absolute win-now roster. Everything is there, and they've just been a quarterback away to really compete in the playoffs once again. And while I agree with your points that Jimmy Garoppolo is not a top 10 quarterback, and he isn't, but they have proven that they can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. And you're right on that boat as well, where they can win with Jimmy Garoppolo. They can get the job done, let Trey Lance grow. And I've seen a lot of people talk about how Trey Lance, this is a good landing spot for him to start with Detroit, with Philadelphia. But you said it yourself that Kyle Shanahan's offense is extremely intricate. It's all designs. It's everything that the person needs to understand. And who else has more exposure than Jimmy Garoppolo at this moment right now? Yep. And when you have a winning roster, you still have Garoppolo who can step in, do what he needs to do, and win. Because in my opinion, I think the opening of the schedule doesn't put the team in a position where they're going to need to make a play to make something happen. Detroit's head coach and GM, everything is brand new. They're still finding their way. Philadelphia, new head coach, questionable starting quarterback. They still need to find their way. So it's not like these games are going to come down to the wire. I do think the Niners should be able to handle these games relatively easy for the most part. And when it comes to that, I think you just need to let Jimmy Garoppolo go out there and just do his job and do what he can. Don't take the chance that you're rushing Trey Lance into play. And I was on this idea at first that Trey Lance can step in and Kyle Shanahan can make things easy for his quarterbacks. But I don't necessarily think, given what Trey Lance is right now, that that's the case for him. I understand that Trey Lance is an incredibly smart quarterback. And I mean, you've been on Trey Lance's boat since day one. So you especially have been on him since day one. So you really know everything about Trey Lance. Could he step in and play? Sure. But we want to see growth out of him. We want to see him really garner the playbook and really understand everything and just take the time throughout the whole process. So are you eyeing, because you talked about Jimmy Garoppolo's trade value and trying to get that up. At the moment, are you eyeing Trey Lance to start around week 6 or 7, or just whenever the Garoppolo trade can happen?
I think the bye week is going to be key. Really 2 dates. The bye week where that shakes out, and then if there's any Thursday night games. Because if there's a Thursday night game, that gives you that extra 4 days to prepare for the next week. We saw Miami do this switch last year, right? With Fitzpatrick to Tua. But the thing that, stands out, and I love the way you phrased all that, Perry, was, look, if we're just looking for 2021, then yeah, you would roll Trey Lance out there right now. But that's not what the 49ers are doing. if you roll Trey Lance out there right now, that's fine. But think back to the 2 years we had a quarterback get injured, and it ruined our entire season. We were sky high. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, wins his last 5 starts, beats 2 playoff teams with ease. You're rolling into the 2018 season. Boom, ACL's out. That season was done because we didn't have the depth at quarterback. Go back to 2020, same thing. Jimmy Garoppolo's ankle, it's done. Imagine if we just had a capable backup last year. That roster, despite all the injuries, if we just had a decent backup, still would have made the playoffs. We were very, very close. There's a couple games that if they just switched a little bit of a way there, the 49ers are in the playoffs. So basically what Kyle Shanahan's saying is this. We've had a losing season 3 out of 4 years since they've been there. This guarantees we're going to the playoffs. If they don't make the playoffs with both these quarterbacks on the roster, there's going to be bigger issues at hand. But I don't think that that's even in play. Now, you brought up the question, okay, when do you make the switch? The bye week is huge, number one. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan is going into this thinking, when can we make the switch? The switch is going to be determined by Jimmy Garoppolo, and it's all on him. And what you want to do, that's what you want it to be. If he goes out there and let's just say he's 4-2, I don't think Kyle Shanahan makes that switch. And I know some of your listeners are like, no, get that. Why would we trade up all this? I'm with you. I understand that, but it's not a nearsighted focus. This is long-term. You've seen Jimmy Garoppolo do this. You've seen him get you to the Super Bowl. I think that the transition will happen sometime, but I don't think they're in a hurry to get Trey Lance out there. The kid just turned 21. You got time. And this is a long move, not a short-sighted move. And so I don't like putting a week on it, but I'd say he probably gets about 6 starts this year would be ideal. And again, you have like a week 10 bye week. Oh my God, that would be ideal. That'd be perfect. And you make the transition then.
Agreed. And again, I think a lot of people just really want Trey Lance to play. And I mean, you look at him compared to Jimmy Garoppolo, and I mean, they're both great quarterbacks. Don't get me wrong. But just them physically, them tangibly is night and day. I mean, you look at Trey Lance's accuracy, while it can be skeptical at times, Trey Lance hits the throws he needs to at all levels of the field. He knows how to make the plays with his feet. He knows how to read and diagnose coverages in the field. And he did that all at NDSU in one incredible year. And that's not to say Jimmy Garoppolo can't do that stuff either, but he's just so physically limited inside of the pocket to where he can only be inside of the pocket that he's making Shanahan and his wide receivers work a lot more. And that kind of raises the question of, well, if the Niners are going to struggle with Jimmy Garoppolo right off the bat, even if they're winning games, do you want to see Trey Lance sooner? And in my opinion, I think that if they're struggling with Garoppolo behind the helm, but they're still winning, I don't necessarily think that rushes Trey Lance to get to play. No. Because I think throughout Shanahan's entire tenure, from Brian Hoyer to CJ Beathard to Garoppolo, Mullins, all these guys that have played under the quarterback position, Shanahan has been able to protect them, even through injuries. He's been able to protect them through the run game. And he's done that with every running back imaginable, from Mostert to Wilson to Alfred Morris even. Shanahan was able to kind of keep his quarterback play at bay, even if it was spotty at best, and just make things work. Even through the injuries, even through losing seasons, we've always been able to see what the potential of this team is. So, John, when Trey Lance does transition into the offense, do you think he'll still be kind of that 20 at most pass attempt type quarterback, or do you think Shanahan might want to let it loose a little more?
I think every game plan for Kyle Shanahan, it's interesting. The way he scripts his plays to start the game, it's better than anybody in the NFL. Andy Reid, you got to put up there as well. Like, he scripts the game out, his game plan going into it, it's flawless. But then you get into that third possession in the first quarter and things stall out every single time. You come out in second half, offense is freaking buzzing. They had time to sit there and think about it. You get halfway through the third quarter, it slumps down again. And I bring all that up to say, Kyle Shanahan's never wanted to throw the ball probably more than 25 times a game. That's never his game plan. He wants to run the ball. But whenever he gets behind or frustrated or something happens with the defense or just he gets flustered, he goes straight to the pass. He goes empty formations and he just throw. So, and we saw that with the Super Bowl loss, the 28-3 loss with the Falcons. We saw it with the Super Bowl loss with the 49ers as well, just abandoning the running game despite it being a one-possession game. Now, Kyle Shanahan's a top 3 play caller in the NFL. There's no doubt about that, but it's not to say that he's perfect. And it's okay to point out that, man, there's some areas in which he can improve on. So I'm hoping some of those things change. Trey Lance doesn't need to throw the ball that much. Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't need to throw the ball that much. You know, a lot of people took it as a slight to Jimmy Garoppolo when he only had like 8 passes in the NFC Championship. I never saw it that way. I mean, that's exactly how you draw it up, and it worked out to a T. So Trey Lance can throw the ball. He's got a cannon. I mean, he's far more, he got a way better arm than Jimmy Garoppolo has ever dreamt about. He can throw the ball a lot. But I don't think that there is this need to throw it 30 plus times. And you can't really even find it that much in the 49ers system. Hasn't happened. You go back to the Saints game, whatever. But it doesn't happen a lot. And one more thing I did want to add when you were talking about making this switch, right? Remember how loyal Kyle Shanahan was to Nick freaking Mullins, going out there having 3 turnovers a damn game and just looking lost. And he just stuck with them. CJ Beathard's on the sideline, comes in, does great, puts him right back on the sideline for 3 games. And again, the only time CJ got in was injuries. Kyle Shanahan's kind of attitude, he's not succumbing to what fans want. That doesn't even register. He doesn't have a Twitter account. I think he's got a couple ghost Twitter accounts because he follows me. I know he does deep down inside, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think that's one very interesting thing about Kyle Shanahan is that you mentioned he's a top 3 offensive play caller. When you think of top offensive play callers, you kind of think of guys who are one-dimensional in the sense that they know how to develop great concepts in one facet of the game. Like Greg Roman, for example, is a very, very good run game coordinator, but when it comes to passing, it might be a little more limited, and we've seen that all throughout his career. Sean Payton, I honestly think, is another example where, although he's playing with Drew Brees for so long, a lot of those passing concepts were really good. A lot of short, intermediate type throws that Drew Brees was able to excel on. And the run game just kind of benefited off that. With Kyle Shanahan, you have a coordinator who's just beautiful in the run game and the pass game. And it's actually really amazing to me that when you look at Kyle Shanahan, who doesn't really like to call passing plays unless it's needed, because like you said, he doesn't like to pass more than 20 to 25 times. And when he does that, he knows when he wants to do it. But the thing is that when he does it, it's almost always open because he's such a fantastic schemer. He knows how to get things open. And that's the kind of thing where people I've seen on social media so far say Trey Lance should be a 20-plus pass attempt type of guy. And I'm just thinking like, no, he can be if it needs to be, but that's not what Shanahan wants. Shanahan wants to just run the ball. And I think we're going to kind of transition here a little bit. When you look at graphics right now, at least based on offense, obviously Trey Lance, Aaron Banks, big dude, big, massive mauler of a lineman. And Trey Sermon, I honestly kind of get Frank Gore vibes from just because of how tough of a runner he is. When you look at those 3 picks and you look at how powerful they are, it kind of gives you the idea that Shanahan not only is drafting for toughness and durability, he's kind of switching his own scheme a bit. Trey Sermon can fit the zone scheme and running if they want. But you look at Banks and you look at Sermon specifically, those are 2 power type guys. And I think Shanahan really wants to emphasize more power type concepts. And you look at Trey Lance's film when he was playing at NDSU, aside from their offense being very pro style, a lot of Lance's running concepts were power scheme where he was running behind a couple of blockers, preferably a guard, another fullback or running back. So Lance had blockers of his own. Do you feel that Shanahan and the Niners are kind of transitioning the way in which they're doing the running offense? And I don't mean like entirely different. I'm thinking of more different type schemes where we'll see more power, not as much zone.
I think we're going to definitely see some more of that. And Kyle Shanahan's never been just a straight zone guy. I know he gets that rap a lot of time. We do a lot of inside kind of off, base moves, especially with our offensive line. I know the inside zone's a little bit of a power scheme, a little bit. It's called zone, but again, it's combo blocking, getting to the second level, things like that, creating creases on the inside. But, I said something earlier about how, Kyle Shanahan needs to grow in certain areas. And I thought this was a huge one. When I was going through doing all my draft work, I graded 105 players for the 49ers. Aaron Banks wasn't one of them. Now, I watched some Aaron Banks film, but I didn't do the write-up because I was like, oh, yeah, 335? Nope, that ain't happening. Like 6'5", 335, he's not on our board. Wrong. They go get him, and then they go trade up for a running back. What? Trading up for a running back. The 49ers have not drafted one guard since this front office has showed up. Now they draft 2 guards and they draft 2 running backs in the same one. And you're just sitting there going, what the hell is happening? And so it's almost like they've finally adjusted a little bit off of kind of, I want my guys that do this, whatever. And they start saying, look, let's figure some things out. Let's adjust. Our quarterbacks are getting hit way too much. We have to put a premium on that. And one of the things I like about Trey Sermon is, guess what? Very, very good in pass protection. So it seems like the first, second, and third picks were all about this idea of let's make sure our number 3 pick that we traded all this capital for works. How do we have to make sure that Trey Lance is successful? Because if Trey Lance is a success, this entire draft is a win. You can miss on every damn player. Doesn't matter. You go back to the very first draft. Reuben Foster, Solomon Thomas, Joe Williams, CJ. It was awful, but we got Kittle, right? And so we got Kittle. And so it's like, we got Kittle. This is even more important because it's at the number 3 pick and it's the quarterback and he just turned 21. So you shift the focus from Shanahan, I want this scheme type thing, to now we have this quarterback. Let's guarantee that he is going to be successful. And if Trey Lance is successful, the head coach stays for as long as he wants. John Lynch stays for as long as he wants. Everybody stays, everybody's happy. And that seems to be where they're going. And the one thing I will say to wrap this part up, you're talking about going to more power. I remember tweeting out like, hey, it's all power. We're changing schemes. That's what it looks like. And then Shanahan goes and drafts a 4-3 running back. So it's like, oh, there we go. Now we're back. Now we're back.
Okay, so that actually brings up another good point I want to move on to. The team just released Austin Walter. I think that was kind of a given just because Austin Walter is a good running back, but he's just the odd one out. A lot of people have been kind of rumbling on social media that Raheem Mostert could be possibly on the block or very movable. And then you look at them drafting Elijah Mitchell, who is a 4-3 running back who can just fly. I won't say that Mitchell could replace Mostert in that role because Mostert and Mitchell aren't necessarily comparable, at least in terms of just burst. But you look at Shanahan, who went out of his way to draft 2 running backs, probably at the helm of Bobby Turner, who knows what he's doing with running backs, obviously with the scheme change as well, possibly. You look at that. Do you think Mostert – I personally think he'll be on the roster to start the season. But you look at all these moves they've made at running back. I mean, they brought back Jeff Wilson. Hasty's still on the roster. They went and got Wayne Gallman. Now you got Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell, and you still have Raheem Mostert. Do you think that Mostert could possibly be the odd one out, or do you think it's just kind of who looks the best?
I wouldn't be surprised if there were some draft day trades trying to take place that just never, materialized. It definitely makes sense. I mean, he's going to be 31 next year. It's the last year of his deal. He's relatively cheap back, but the market for running backs is just nil. It's bad. It doesn't exist. And so that's kind of the rough issue. Now, if we take Kyle Shanahan at his word, he talked about, man, every year we've been here, we've lost 4 running backs. His first year, Alfred Morris was our week 1 starter. God, you know how awful it wasn't even like Alfred Morris. It was like Alfred Morris is like left out in the sun for a little while and then was spoiled. And then you got Alfred Morris. Like it was bad. And we've had some really bad. Jerick McKinnon last year, those 3 games. And so it really, again, the kind of narrative of this entire draft class and offseason was we have lost because of injuries. And that's been our quote unquote excuse. Shanahan's never said that's an excuse, but that's the narrative that goes out, man. The national media, 49ers lost last year, but yeah, all those injuries. It's kind of like Kyle Shanahan saying, fine, F the injuries. And if the injuries happen, not going to be a reason why this offense doesn't succeed. We proved the defense could keep going with the injuries. They lost everybody. Defense was still great last year. He's saying, screw that. We lose a quarterback, next man up, we're good. We lose 3 running backs, screw that, we're good. And it's kind of that adjustment to no more excuses. Injuries will not stop us this year. Now, again, long-term, that's another issue. And that brings into the idea, look, Jeff Wilson Jr., last year of his deal. Raheem Mostert, last year of his deal. So your top 2 guys going into this draft, they're going to be gone next year. Kyle Shanahan's not paying a running back top-tier money. I don't think either one of them get top-tier money, but you kind of move on from that. So it does seem like the future of this position is going to be Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell, and that's a bright damn future.
I'd say so. And I think that when you have Trey Lance on the roster, rookie contract, 5 years, very affordable for the rest of the team. It lets them bring back guys like Fred Warner and Nick Bosa. And then on the receiving side, you have someone like Deebo Samuel who's going to need an extension as well. I know Ayuk was just drafted, but that's going to come up very quick also. Now Mike McGlinchey is going to need a contract soon enough. Other guys are going to get restructured. The Niners still need to address center. So a lot of the deals they made, especially on offense and defense, are those kind of one-year deals where at least they were able to maintain the core players. And that's, I think, what matters most. So when you look at the running backs coming in, no matter who it is, whether it is Mostert or whether it is Sermon, Wilson, whoever it may be, do you expect the run game to pretty much just pick up where it's always left off at, even with all the injuries?
I think it's going to be better. I think the running game, you look at the yards per carry, which is usually the metric that Kyle Shanahan kind of goes with. And that's kind of like the trait, right? Like, oh, Kyle Shanahan is outside zone running game and, yards per carry, which he's always amongst the league leaders. Well, last year he wasn't. He was right smack dab in the middle, 4.3 yards per carry, ranked 16th in the NFL. But that's awful for Kyle Shanahan. He's usually 4.7 or higher. And if you look at what Trey Lance did, man, his yards per carry in college was it was stupid. These are his yearly averages for Trey Sermon. 6.1 his freshman year, 5.8 yards per carry sophomore year, 7.1 junior, transferred to Ohio State, 7.5 as the bell cow guy. So he's going. A lot of people think it's all about speed with Kyle Shanahan. That's not what it is. It's large chunks. That's what he wants. However the hell you're going to do that, usually speed's the easiest way in the outside zone system. But no, it doesn't have to be that. Again, Alfred Morris in Washington was second in the NFL in rushing as a rookie. He's not fast. Jeff Wilson Jr., not fast. And so you have some of these pieces, as long as you get those chunks, that's what he wants. And Trey Sermon brings that. The speed factor, you're right. Elijah Mitchell, yeah, he's got the speed. You can go watch that Alabama game. You don't see a lot of top tier in Elijah Mitchell film just because it's a smaller school. But they did play Alabama one game, and he was by far not the best player on the field, but he belonged. he was not overmatched in that game at all.
Kyle Shanahan likes the speed. I will admit that. I mean, Mostert and Mitchell are fast, but like you said, he likes the guys that can just go, that can just hit a hole and go. A lot of one-cut running backs that know how to diagnose his zone, his play style. And that's the thing, is that Shanahan is hailed for being an offensive genius. But I think the reality is that he makes his offense so easy. It's easier said than done for someone who's never played football. But based off of what you heard and how you watch film and what you see, he makes his jobs easier. And you've heard offensive linemen who have been in his offense historically have said, that's my favorite offense to be in, because he makes your job so easy to do and to understand and really, really just be able to execute very well. So you mentioned that the Niners' run game should be even better than it was in 2019, which I personally believe also. I also think they're going to break the rushing record, but that's whether Trey Lance plays
17 games, baby.
I know. Obviously, Trey Lance would have to be in that case, but hey, I still think they are going to be a really, really high flight running game, to say the least. And then let's kind of take a look at the passing game real quick before we kind of wrap it up, because I've had you on for half an hour already. You look at the wide receivers right now. This is the position group on offense that has received the most criticism, because the Niners didn't really do anything about it other than get Austin Watkins, which I like personally. But Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Austin Watkins, obviously, they brought back Mohamed Sanu. Trent Taylor's gone. Half the veterans are gone. And it's really just kind of a toss-up in the wide receiver room. I personally think that the way the wide receivers are shaping out right now, I don't think they're going to be asked to be world beaters. Shanahan's never really asked for his wide receivers to be world beaters, other than when he's had Julio Jones, for example, who was, still the best receiver in football. But you look at the guys right now, especially the wide receivers, I think they kind of fit that role player type mold where you have Ayuk, who can really do everything. We've seen them take end arounds in the run game and be successful as well. We've seen him in the screen game. We've seen him run deep. So he can really do it all. But I don't think Shanahan is going to be asking of him to be a 1,000-yard wide receiver. I think he's going to be asking of him to say, hey, look, you're probably going to get 6 to 7 targets, maybe more, depending on how the run game is, and just go out there and execute and get open. That's really all it is. Same with Deebo Samuel, who a lot of people have criticized for being an extension of the running game, when in reality, he can run routes pretty good. He can also win contested catches as well. So when you look at the wide receiver room right now, and I'm going to include Kittle also. Kittle, how could you not? I think the pressure off of them won't be taken so hardly because whether it's Garoppolo or Trey Lance, the understanding is that the run game should be able to excel, assuming everyone stays healthy. Do you think the passing game this season, whether it is Garoppolo or Trey Lance, is something that's going to be kind of feared? Or do you think could we possibly see defenses try and challenge quarterbacks once again?
I think initially it's going to be very tough because if you got Debo and Ayuk and Kittle healthy, now that's a big if. But if those three guys are out there, yes, this is a elite passing attack. I don't care who the quarterback is, just because the yards after catch with those guys. They can take any single play with Kyle Shanahan, which he's going to scheme up some good stuff. And yeah, it's going to be incredible. The question is, what happens if one goes down? That's where the red flag is. This is the issue of depth. You address running back, you address guard, you address quarterback. You didn't address wide receiver. Who's that wide receiver? Who's starting week 1? Wide receiver 3. I know who they want to start. That's Jalen Hurd. But good gosh, that's Mr. Glass, man. Like, and I love Jalen Hurd. I'm one of the biggest fans of him when we drafted him. I actually had him rated. I should bring this up because it's bad. I was wrong. I had him rated one spot ahead of Debo. In that draft rankings. I didn't have Debo low. I just love Jalen Hurts film. I thought that you could just do so much stuff with him, but you had the back issue, tears the ACL like one of the very first practices. Now, the good news is, if there is good news in this, he tore his ACL in training camp. Usually takes about 8 to 9 months. He's been up there. He's been working out. A lot of positive stuff coming from the coaches. I don't like relying on that just because back-to-back seasons. But that seems to be when this draft class was finished. I was like, I guess Jalen Hurd or Jawan Jennings healthy because who's wide receiver 3? River Craycraft? Are you kidding me? Like, not trying to talk trash on River Craycraft. I like him. He stepped in. Richie James, like, it's not where you want it to be. And again, if they're healthy, if your studs are healthy, great. We haven't seen our studs healthy. Like, that just doesn't happen for us. And so we'll have to see. I like Austin Watkins. He's a lot of fun, but I don't think he's an inside slot wide receiver. That's just not really his game. I think he's an outside guy. You want to put him in that Kendrick Bourne role? I'm all for it. I'd love to see it. But, man, there's a strong chance he's going to be on the practice squad. What was the quote that Kyle Shanahan said? He said, yeah, we looked at wide receivers, but we think we have 6 NFL wide receivers already on our rosters that could beat out these guys that were available on the clock, so we just didn't take them. We'll see, man. No injuries, elite passing attack. One injury, now you're scratching your head.
That almost reminds me of like a Kyle Shanahan ego type thing where it's like this was hailed as an even better wide receiver class than last year, and last year's was really good. This year's was by far and beyond talented. And I know, obviously, the Niners addressed cornerback with Ambry Thomas and Diamador Lenore. But at the 3rd round, they could have also made a move for De'Ami Brown. Tutu Atwell got taken. They could have taken Amon-Ra St. Brown got taken. I know De'Ami was there. De'Ami was like everyone's guy.
Yeah, he was.
Tylan Wallace was there also. I was pretty high on him as well. So the Niners had these options at wide receiver they could have gone about. Kyle Shanahan said,
the NFC West took them all. That's the funny thing.
Yeah.
Like every NFC West team took a bunch of wide receivers except the 49ers.
That's what I mean. It's like Kyle Shanahan, while he did step out of his comfort zone in terms of, at least we understand, based on how he drafted, there's that part of him where it's like everyone is going, get the wide receiver, we need it. And instead he trades up for a running back, which I love. I'm not bashing the pick. I think it was very well deserved. But you look at the running back and you look at the wide receiver and it's like, well, I thought we needed wide receiver more. But you look at how important the running game is for Kyle Shanahan, and you look at what the running game does for the passing attack, especially play action, something that Trey Lance excelled at very well. You look at what that does, and you look at what that does for the rest of the wide receivers, including Kittle. It just opens everything up entirely. And that's kind of where the concept of making things easier for everyone really comes in, so long as everyone stays healthy. But I will say that as of right now, when you have Ayuk and Debo on the field, and the Niners do a lot of 21 personnel, so we won't really see 3 wide receivers. Unless it comes down to a shootout, then we will see 3 wide receivers. So you have Ayuk on the field, you have Debo on the field, and you have Craycraft on the field, you have Sanu on the field. Yeah. James, no offense to him, it kind of raises the question, like, are one of them going to really threaten defenses? Because if teams can kind of key in on the other 2 or other 3, hey, if you play a good defense or a smart team, you know that of all things, it's going to make the job really difficult. But I will say that right now, there's a reason why the Niners have the fourth highest odds in the NFC to make the Super Bowl, and that's with a rookie quarterback and a bunch of new pieces and guys coming back healthy. There's a reason why they made all these moves, and there's a lot of reason to be excited. I mean, the schedule comes out in an hour and a half, I think, so that would really set the tone for everyone moving forward. But John, thank you so much for being on. I have one more question to ask you. I've only had one other guest, but when I get more guests on, this is always going to be my regular thing. I think that a lot of people have just been so honed in on the draft, so honed in on schedules and players, that there's been a lot of brutality on social media, to say the least. So I just want to ask you, man, just human to human, how are you doing? Aside from everything going on with the NFL, obviously you're a teacher. Things are coming to a close for you. Your summer starts soon. How have you been doing, man? How's life?
Man, I love this, dude. Perry, you're the freaking man. I appreciate you having me on. This is a lot of fun. And I'll say this, I'm doing really, really well. One of the things that I strive for, and I work with my students and my family and all these things, is be positive and surround yourself with positive people. I ask my students this all the time. Think about that one person that's negative and complains all the time. Do you enjoy being around that person? And they all say, no, exactly. Find people that will help you. And again, if you have somebody in your family or friend that's negative all the time, you challenge that in a respectful way. And you just say, hey, man, it seems like you're down a lot. Let's focus on some positivity. How can I help you? It just seems like you're complaining all the time. And again, if they don't change their behavior, that's okay. You're allowed to. You don't have to be friends with everybody. You don't have to engage with everybody. And I'd say the same for 49ers Twitter. You know, I've been around this for a little while. I'm going on, this is just over 5 years now doing the 49ers Rush podcast. And I've made so many awesome connections. I've helped probably 20 different people, not even just 49ers people, start podcasts and YouTube channels. Like, I enjoy, again, the teacher aspect of it. I want to help people. A lot of people I help get started, I have muted because I don't want, I've pulled for the 49ers. This is a fan podcast. I'm not an insider. I don't break news. I just want to have fun and build a positive community. That's kind of my thing. And so if you distract from that, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want that coming into my life. And with all the anti, like, Jimmy G hate and, man, whatever else, and just all the stuff that's happened, be selective. Twitter is a wonderful thing, but it can be awful and it can be toxic. Mute people that keep bringing that into your life. Skip Bayless accounts, good gosh, mute that garbage. If somebody's first take is, how can I piss fans off? Okay, I'm going to say that. Get that out. Like, you do not need that in your life. And so, I mean, Pro Football Focus commentator, whatever, he's muted. Like, out of here. And so what I would say, I'm great, Perry. Thank you very much. But surround yourself with people that improve your mood. I'm not saying be around homers. And I criticize the 49ers all the time, but you don't have to do it where you're insulting and negative all the time. You know, I sign off my show every single episode. I think we're at like 370 something. Every single episode, be strong, faithful. And a big reason why I love the 49ers so much is because we're not Dallas Cowboy fans. We're not Seahawks fans. That's not who we are. And so sometimes those people come into our fan base and try to tear things down and whatever else. But no. Faithful then, faithful now. Criticize the team. That's okay. You could be upset with the team. But this, if they take this player, I'm not rooting anymore. And no. That's not what faithful is. So surround yourself with positivity, awesome people like yourself, Perry. And, man, life's just better. So I'm doing great. I really appreciate you asking, man.
John, I love hearing this kind of stuff. I think we could always use more positivity in the world. And, I mean, it's good to start positive now. It's going to be a really long, really critical offseason.
Winter is coming.
Dude, I thought my mute list on Twitter was long enough during draft season. But just all the stuff I've been seeing right now, I mean, the mute list is getting even longer.
Yeah.
The block list is getting even longer. It's getting pretty outrageous. So just surrounding yourself with that kind of positivity really makes a difference, man. Obviously, what you do makes a difference as well, because you have so many people who love your work. And you have a lot of people who criticize it also. But when I see you getting into very fair and very real conversations on social media, seeing that how wholesome they are and seeing just how down to earth they are, it gives you a lot of confidence that there are friendly people out there.
And I love criticism. Like, discourse is a beautiful thing. I mean, I went to school for political science and I teach, AP Gov and things like that. Like, I love arguing And it's okay to disagree on things, but to tear people down, you can attack arguments. You don't attack people is what I say all the time. That's okay. So I love criticism. I let my, on whenever I go live, like for the draft, we had several hundred people, in there. And I was like, guys, it's getting a little too friendly in here. Let's do a roast John Chapman session. Let's hear your best stuff. And I got all kinds of good stuff compared to Cartman and all kinds of fun stuff. So yeah, I like disagreements. I like critique. I don't take anything too serious, but treat people with respect.
Last thing, I think when I talk to people about debates and stuff like that, I always kind of tell them that middle ground is honestly really dying. There's no like area where you can come together and say, hey, look, although I disagree with you, I understand where you're coming from. And even though I disagree, I respect your opinion. And there's just, you don't really get that feeling anymore. But when you have it happen, when you see it happening, it's like, okay, well, at least it's not dead, to say the least. But John, thank you again. One last shout out to you. Where can everyone follow you and find you?
Yeah, at JL_Chapman on Twitter and 49ers Rush Podcast. If you're a film guy, strongly recommend YouTube. It's the best place just because you can see the film. Obviously, I do the podcast. Everything I do comes out in the audio version. But YouTube is the place. Just type in John Chapman on YouTube. It'll pull right up, or 49ers Rush. And you can go through and watch film with me. That's kind of the thing. And so that's the best place to do it.
Guys, find John on Twitter, find his podcast. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Follow me on Twitter at Anthony R.M. Perry. Put it all together. You can watch me every Wednesday afternoon. I'm going to try and get guests on as much as I can. If not, you guys will hear me ranting every Wednesday afternoon, California time, talking all things Niners. Everyone, thanks for listening to Perry's Points. Have a great Wednesday, and I will see you guys next week. John, thank you again.